I think oftentimes parents focus on academics and they ask teenagers about their day and if they got in trouble or not, but they don't ask about how they're feeling, their relationships, and that's why they don't have that trust or approach with parents that they do with professionals. Again, ask them from a point of view of feelings. How does that make you feel? Or express your point of view. I've noticed that this behavior has escalated, and provide that opportunity to have a dialogue with your teenager.
Welcome, Linwood Unified Families, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Classroom podcast. Today we are talking on the topic of teen dating violence, an issue that is increasing and it often goes unnoticed and misunderstood. Violence within the teenage population and their dating relationships goes beyond physical abuse to also include emotional, psychological, digital, verbal, and even sexual abuse. Today's research shows that 1 in every 3 teenagers will experience abuse within their relationship, which is why this topic and having this conversation today truly matters. Joining me today is licensed clinical social worker Gloria Nunez. And together we are going to explore what teen dating violence looks like and how we as parents can support and empower our teenagers and also our children to recognize what healthy relationships look like, how to identify toxic traits within a relationship, and how to support our students with dating safely. So thank you, Gloria, for joining us today. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. If you can you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do here at Linwood Unified, and some of your experiences within the field of mental health.
Sure. Hi, again, thank you for having me. My name is Gloria Nunez. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. My role here in Linwood Unified School District is to be a school social worker. My job entitles to provide support services to students, connect students and families with therapy services. In addition to my role here, I have some experience facilitating groups for domestic violence for both men and women, batterers and victims, which has influenced how I think of trauma, consent, power and control, and relationships in treating students from a trauma-informed lens and relational approach.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I know that today's topic is not probably the most exciting or the funnest topic, but it's necessary, right? Because even according to data, about 1.5 million high school students in our country are actually in these domestic violent type relationships, right? And domestic violence is often understood usually only within like the marital relationship or cohabitating couples. And that's not necessarily the case, right?
Correct.
So I want us to kind of answer, I guess for now, like the big picture before we define like what abuse really is. Why is it that teenagers and parents need to recognize what healthy love looks like?
Yes, it's very important because love shouldn't hurt, right? And oftentimes teenagers are not told this. And it's important for both teenagers and parents to discuss this matter because what teenagers tolerate from the relationship at first usually sets the tone for future relationships.
Right.
And because they're young, they may misunderstand jealousy as a form of care, control as a form of protection, and emotional pain as a form of passion. And without parent supervision, they normalize these behaviors. So it's very important for teenagers to understand that love shouldn't be scary or painful, and it encompasses respect, boundaries, and the freedom to be themselves.
Yeah. And love, it's so important to recognize what it is because sometimes we're growing up in a home or love was abusive, then our understanding of love becomes completely distorted, right?
Correct.
What would you say is abuse or even teen dating violence? What does that look like, or how would you even define that if it's not just for adults within that marital cohabitating relationship?
Healthy love should feel safe. It should have respect, boundaries, and again, the ability to be themselves, the freedom to be themselves. Once there's manipulation, fear, control, when someone's trying to change them, who they are, who they talk to, what they wear, then that's not love anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in other words, to kind of understand what abuse is, we have to understand what abuse is not, right?
Correct.
The opposite of it?
Correct.
Okay. So, because from my lens, for our parents, my definition of abuse would also include, before we dive into like the specifics of what that looks like, it usually involves any individual, whether they're a teenager or an adult, that is within an intimate relationship or
Yes.
partnership with somebody else who is experiencing harm.
Correct.
Harm to themselves, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about our teenagers today, right?
Okay.
What are some signs that a parent can look at, or some red flags, if you will, that kind of signals my teenager child might be experiencing a toxic relationship? And I guess really recognize the escalation of it into potential domestic violence. What are some signs that are maybe on the lower end that tend to begin to escalate? And we could just label them as red flags.
Okay. One of them would be constant jealousy, constant texting, right? That can be framed as, I miss you. Sometimes teenagers confuse that feel needed equals to being loved. Those are some of the things, the subtleties that parents can begin to recognize and talk to their teenagers about by having an open dialogue and clear communication with them from a curiosity perspective instead of criticizing them. Asking them questions that invites reflection, because once they begin criticizing, then that shuts down conversation.
Yeah. So some of the signs that the relationship is abusive, you stated it was control, right?
Yes.
So can we talk about that? Because I know there's different forms of abuse that a parent can recognize, and one of them is like the control aspect. And then you highlighted the text messaging, so there's technological abuse.
Yes.
So what does control look like within a teen relationship? I know you highlighted, did you say jealousy?
Jealousy is a common one. Jealousy will be a common one. That is oftentimes misinterpreted for caring. When a loss of self, when the student is not able to do what they would typically do, or hang out with friends and family, some form of isolation, that's another red flag that they may be in a toxic relationship.
Okay. So control causes that person that's dating them to begin to isolate and withdraw.
Yes.
Because their partner might be jealous.
Correct.
Or using guilt against them, basically?
Yes.
Okay. And then with the text messaging, let's talk about that. I know that's a technological form of abuse. What are forms of technological abuse for parents who recognize it in their child?
Technology and social media can create more problems in a relationship, can make them more challenging, especially because it can normalize frequent texting, location sharing, right? And then it can be used to manipulate a teenager. For example, by public humiliation, give them the silent treatment, or post a comment to create a response from a teenager. Again, social media can amplify jealousy and also comparison, and it creates a lot of conflict. And unlike offline conflict, it doesn't end when they go home. It continues. It can be nonstop. So monitoring their devices, it's another way that parents can help not only identify the red flags. Right? Technology should be used as a form of connection, not to have them supervise or be monitored or controlled.
Yeah, because in my experience with clients, what I've told parents is if your child, and I keep saying child, but really I'm meaning their teenager,
Yes.
freaks out because you take away their phone, that could be a red flag, because some of the emotional reactivity towards a parent taking away their phone, even if the parent's like, I mean this in a good way to protect my kid, a red flag is they don't take that away because that individual doesn't want the punishment from their partner. They're scared of their partner's reaction, and that's a form of abuse, because some partners, like you said, location sharing.
Yes.
Where are you at? What are you doing? Who are you with? Let me see your phone. Let me go through your messages, right? Or why did you post that picture of you? Who are you trying to get attention from, right? And I know those are all forms of technological abuse as well.
Yes, or to answer them quickly, right, in an immediate manner.
Yeah. Why aren't you responding right away?
Right.
Yeah. Who are you with?
Or what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then also, sometimes they take away their phones, right? And that's another way of abuse
Yeah.
and control.
Yeah. Because they're taking it away to control them.
Correct.
And to prevent them from, like you said earlier, from anybody. That's a form of isolation too, right?
Yes.
And the other form of abuse, so I know you mentioned control, technological, another could be emotional abuse. So what does that look like? Again, red flags for the parent to recognize there's emotional abuse happening in my teenager's life.
Absolutely. It could be insults disguised as jokes that can chip away to the confidence and self-esteem of a student. It can be gaslighting or making someone else feel responsible for their feelings. Those are all forms of emotional abuse.
And some of our parents are not familiar with that term gaslighting. Okay. Can we unpack that a little bit?
Sure. So gaslighting is when someone makes the other person feel responsible for their actions and their behaviors. An example could be a teenager saying or justifying their behavior by stating, well, you knew I'm jealous and you know me this way, so you have to tolerate the behaviors, to kind of minimize their actions, their own actions, yes.
And that's like putting the blame, like, I'm blaming you, like you knew better.
Yes.
So there's also like they're trivializing what the problem is, right?
Like you keep upsetting me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you mentioned the joke, like, and then they laugh it off, like, I just meant it as a joke.
Yes.
But then we both know as adults, if somebody talked to us in a certain way or shared a joke at our expense, we'd be like, I don't like that. I don't like how that makes me feel.
Right.
That chips away at my self-esteem. Like, again, you said, like, love doesn't hurt.
It doesn't. It shouldn't hurt.
Jokes at our expense, that does hurt.
That does hurt, yes. Those are put-downs, right? And they can be minimized as jokes, but they are actually attacks toward character. So that's what a teenager needs to be aware of. And if sometimes they can identify how it feels, but they feel like it's wrong, have parents help them trust their instinct and their judgment, even if they can identify what it feels like. Just trust that their feelings also matter.
Right.
And they're important too.
Right. Another form of abuse would be threats, right?
Yes.
And what is a threatening type of relationship? What does that dynamic look like in a teen relationship?
Threats or intimidation. If you don't do what I say, I'm gonna say this about you or share a picture about yourself. That will be a threat, whether they finalize the threat or not. Just stating it to gain control and power over their partner, that will be a form of threat.
And one very common one that we tend to hear here at Linwood Unified with our students in our sessions is, when a partner is pulling away from the toxic person because they're recognizing the red flags, then the toxic individual, if you break up with me, I'm going to hurt myself.
Yes.
Like threats to even kill themselves.
Yes.
And those tend to manipulate, going back to the control,
Yes.
to keep that person scared enough to stay, right?
Correct. They can make threats against their own safety, their partner's safety, their family even. And that can manipulate someone into staying because they don't want them to hurt. They just want them to stop hurting them. Yes.
Yeah. And one of them that's also not really talked about, but is very significant today, is sexual abuse.
Yes.
Amongst the teen population.
Yes.
So let's talk just very briefly about that. What is sexual abuse within a teen relationship?
When they feel pressure to do something that they don't want or they're not ready, I try to talk to my students about consent and just having the maturity to be in a sexual relationship. I explain that no is not only a word but a complete sentence.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be a but after no or an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
No means no, and that consent can change. Whatever they're willing to consent to in a relationship, that can change in a matter of seconds, and their partner needs to be respectful of that. Sexual assault involves any unwanted sexual behavior with a teenager.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing that I'm hearing that's, I think, a common thread between all the forms of abuse we just talked about,
Yes.
whether that's the form of abuse with control, technology, the threats, the emotional abuse, and now the sexual abuse, it's the word pressure.
Yes.
Like an individual feels pressured
Yes.
to really go against themselves,
Yes.
to honor that person or give the other person what they want, but at the expense of who they are, at the core of who they are.
Yes.
And they begin to really lose themselves, right?
Yes.
So that's a big piece, I think, is it's the pressure to stay.
Yes.
And then they begin to feel like stuck,
Right.
right? What can a parent, I guess, do to support their child with not so much leaving the relationship right away? Because we can't really dictate that. That has to be the decision of the teenager, right?
Correct.
But what can a parent do to educate their child about a toxic relationship and a healthy relationship? And how can they empower their child to make the right decisions that are good for themselves?
Right. Parents are powerful role models that can influence a teenager's view of relationship. As a matter of fact, teenagers learn a lot from how adults treat each other, especially in a relationship. So initially, I would say parents can start a dialogue, come from a form of curiosity instead of judgment, instead of telling their teenager to leave the relationship or criticize their teenager or their partner. Kind of come from a point of how does that make you feel, and what do you think? What would you tell a friend if that friend were going through that? Kind of put them from a different perspective. In addition, parents can model respect and boundaries. They can show them how to say no, show them how to have a disagreement without insulting, express communication and listening and compromise in a relationship. Prioritize themselves, make time for themselves as well, and then be open and honest with their feelings while at the same time being kind and empathetic to the feelings of someone else.
Right, right. That's all such good stuff, because a lot of times our children tend to do what they have seen in the home more than doing what we tell them to do, right?
Yes.
I think as parents, a key takeaway too to this conversation is that we have to remember what it was like when we were teenagers.
Yes.
And it's so easy as a parent to chop up that relationship of like, you guys are not going to get married. It's not that serious. This is only a high school love affair. This is only a fling. But one thing we forget is how we felt as teenagers.
Yes.
And when we were dating, I don't know if you dated as a teenager, but when I was dating as a teenager, I remember my mom did not like my first boyfriend, but I thought I was in love, right? And in her own way, she tried to sabotage the relationship. But of course, the stronger a parent comes in, the more a teenager is probably going to dig their feet into the ground.
Yes.
Because they are already naturally fighting for their independence.
Yes.
And wanting to make their own choices. But I think that's a pivotal piece is let's remember what it was like to be a teenager. And those relationships were really realistic and meaningful and true love for that teenager. Even if we know it's going to fall apart eventually and they're not going to get married, right?
Right.
So I think that empathy part is important, and it goes a long way to helping guide and coach our child to go into the right direction of, hey, let's sit down, like you said dialogue. Let's talk about this. Maybe I haven't been the best role model.
Right.
And maybe I taught you some things because I made some unhealthy choices in my own dating life, or maybe you've seen some things with your mom and dad that weren't healthy.
Right.
So apologizing even for
Absolutely.
that, but
Yes.
you're showing them your humanity of, but let's learn from our mistakes too.
Yes. Recognizing, right, that we're human, that we'll make mistakes. And like you mentioned, just being that role model. And if you haven't been having that honest dialogue and the humility to say, I made that mistake and I don't want you to go through what I've been through.
Right.
Because it's difficult and it's painful. And again, love shouldn't hurt, right?
Right.
But yes, as teenagers, those relationships are so meaningful. They mean everything, and they think that they're the one they're going to end up with and get married and have kids and life together. As adults, we've been through it and we understand that that's usually not the case. But when they're in that mindset and that's their first experience, it means the world to them.
It truly does.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing a parent shouldn't do, so we talked a little bit about how they can help, but there are some pivotal things to not do.
Yes.
And that would be, there's a time and a place to be a helicopter parent, because I'm all for helicopter parenting, but for the younger children.
Yes.
The 1, 2, 3-year-olds.
Yes.
But as a teenager, we don't want a helicopter parent our child.
Right.
Because what could happen?
You can push away.
Because helicopter parenting a teenager is doing what this toxic relationship is doing.
Right.
It says, I'm controlling.
Power and control.
I have the power to make the decisions for you. So I'm not teaching my child to be independent or mature enough to take care of themselves, right?
Yes.
So I'm only modeling for my child what I don't want for them,
Right.
right? I'm robbing them of the control and of the choice and of the power.
Correct.
So I think it's important as parents to also recognize what not to do, and that would
Yes.
be, what are the things that a parent should not do?
Absolutely, like you mentioned, unintentionally, they may be doing what they don't want their kids to go through, right? They may be overprotective in that sense. For that, I would involve the teenagers' input so they can have their own autonomy and feel respected and feel part of the conversation and the boundaries within dating. I would look at it from a point of safety and their emotional well-being, prioritizing school instead of this is what you need to do because I'm the parent and I know better, right?
Yeah. And I think too, there are some things, there's a time and a place where we do have to step in
Yes.
for emergency purposes, right? When like safety, like physical safety is an issue. Like I don't want my daughter or my son to end up dead at the hands of a toxic partner, right? And they're young enough for us to still step in because they're legally minors.
Right.
But we only say step in like that and to exert that form of, if you will, control or that decision making on behalf of your minor if it is an emergency type of a situation, right?
Correct.
That would be the only time.
When they're in danger.
When they are in danger.
When they're in danger, when there's physical harm or emotional harm, loss of self, right? That creates some type of safety concern for your teenager, then that's where I would think it will be appropriate for a parent to step in a more directive role.
Yeah. So would you say it's important for a parent to really also reflect before they go into this dialogue with their child on what kind of interaction that they have role modeled with their child, like that own personal awareness piece? It matters, right?
Yes.
Because I think the question is like, does my child trust me enough to open up to me?
Right.
Have I modeled open communication? Or do I push my child away and cause them to shut down based upon my emotional reactivity, my judgmentalism, my own inability to contain my child emotionally? Maybe I personalize it. Because a lot of times our children will choose relationships based upon the experience in the home. So what did home look like
Right.
too, right?
Yes.
I think parents should ask themselves those questions.
Absolutely. And create the time and the space to have that open conversation. Try not to jump into conclusions, listen, engage in active listening where they try to resist the urge to interrupt or try to save their child.
Yeah.
And kind of empower them that the teenager will make the best decisions for themselves, while at the same time providing that guidance and an alliance to your child, letting them know that no matter the decision that they make, that you're always going to be there for them and to help them out whenever they want to.
Right, right. You know, there's a question that parents ask, and it's the why question. Like, why is my child choosing to even stay in this relationship? Like, why don't they know better? How can they choose this individual? Let's talk about the why, because sometimes when we talk about the why, we could actually victim blame.
Yes.
And shame the victim, and we don't want to do that, right?
Correct.
But I know the answer to the why is very complex. Like, it's not just a linear one-off answer.
Right.
It involves a lot of dynamics.
Yes.
But what are a few of the reasons, would you say, that a teenager would stay within a toxic relationship?
I think in part because they either minimize the behaviors of their partner, they believe that they can help them change, they feel guilty leaving the relationship, and they want to be there for their partners. And as we know, domestic violence relationship, it takes about 8 times when the partner leaves before they actually leave for good.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of going back and forth. It's that connection that they have that they don't want to lose, and they want to help their partner through it and be there for them.
Yeah. So, and part of that would be, I guess what I'm hearing you say too, is there's consequences that they're scared to face, such as if I lose this partner, if I walk away, maybe I'll even lose friendships, my social circle.
Yes.
Or I have to really face that this relationship wasn't what I always thought it to be.
Right.
They could also overvalue the public persona
Yes.
of the partner and how the potential, right?
Right.
But they seem so like nice to everybody else, and
Right.
look at the jacket off of their back to somebody else, and the exaggerated public person.
Right.
But behind the scenes and in private, that gets minimized. So
Yes.
they get more lost in the public persona of that
Yes.
person.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So you have the social consequences. And I think sometimes as well, I think there's a distorted perception of being alone versus the loneliness.
Correct.
Sometimes it's better to be in a toxic relationship. Not that this is accurate
Right.
thinking,
Right.
but the thought could be, I'd rather be in a bad relationship than to feel lonely and to be alone by myself.
Right. And like you
Right.
said, it's not only the loss of the relationship or the person that they're with, but also maybe the family that they encounter and they interacted. So it's a loss of friends and family from their partner that they're afraid of giving up.
Yeah. Or even social standing for a teenager at school. Maybe one of them was dating, I don't know, a popular cheerleader, a popular football player, a basketball player, and they don't want to lose that sense of social status and popularity, because that might be a big thing for a teenager,
Absolutely.
right? I think one of the biggest answers to the why goes back to the generational things that we have seen in our family lineage, whether it's our grandparents or our parents, tíos, aunts, uncles, cousins.
Right.
Also what we've seen in our family. It's like,
Yes.
oh, this is normal.
Right.
I'm familiar with abuse, so it's not abuse to me because this is how I was raised.
Right. It's normal behavior. It gets normalized.
Yes.
And that's what they're used to. And that's why they oftentimes expect from relationships. Yes.
Yeah. So why is it so important to differentiate then? I'm familiar with abuse. This is normal. Like, it's all I've ever known. So was I really abused growing up? No, I don't think so. Why is it important for parents and teenagers to really differentiate between abuse and healthy love relationships?
Right. It's very important so they don't fall into the abuse cycle, right? of a relationship. And like you said, it's important for parents to have the humility to accept when they made mistakes, to apologize and recognize when they haven't made the best of choices or role modeling for their teenagers, and to explain the differences between disagreements in a relationship versus harmful behavior.
Yeah. Would you say that there are some mind shifts also that a parent needs to take before or even during the conversation with their child about a toxic relationship and a healthy relationship?
Yes. Again, from their own mindset, how they were raised, what they experienced growing up, to what it is now, right? With technology and social media, taking into account what teenagers are exposed nowadays that maybe they weren't back when they were teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that 33% of teens will experience abuse, to me, that's a high number.
Yes.
Like, if I have 3 children that I'm raising, one of them are likely to be in an abusive relationship.
Right.
Whether there was abuse in the home or not, right?
Right.
And if I have 5 kids, one of those kids is going to experience abuse. So as a parent, like, this is a very important matter today. Even if, as a parent, you did everything right.
Yeah.
And you had a very loving home.
Yes.
It could be a covert, narcissistic, charming, outgoing personality that just captivates your child.
Right.
And before you know it, they're sucked in.
Right.
And this is why recognizing the signs as a parent is so important.
Yes.
And that our children feel comfortable enough to talk to us.
Correct.
But they won't, like, if we don't have that open communication. And this is why a lot of actually students will talk to their teachers or even just school professionals.
Yes.
LCSWs, for example. That's unfortunate that honestly the data shows that a child will feel more comfortable talking with the school staff about what they're going through before they bring it into the home environment.
Correct.
And it really should be the opposite.
Yes. I think oftentimes parents focus on academics and they ask teenagers about their day and if they got in trouble or not, but they don't ask about how they're feeling, their relationships, and that's why they don't have that trust or approach with parents that they do with professionals.
Yeah.
Because we bring these topics to our teenagers through workshops and presentations. So we start those conversations and we open that dialogue for the students to approach us. And I think that's what parents need to do. They need to start the conversation because a teenager is not going to go up to them because they don't know if it's never been talked about, if they're allowed to date, if parents are going to get upset because they're dating someone that maybe they wouldn't approve of. So parents need to start that dialogue and conversations for students to trust them.
Right. And with the children that are being raised, I think even in the single family homes, I think it's important to even ask yourself, if dating is something on your mind as a parent, if you want to have a blended family, is this partner somebody I would want my child to date when they're older? Not this specific partner, but their characters, the characteristics, their traits, their personality.
Right.
Because if I'm saying it's okay for me, then I'm saying it's okay for my child.
Correct.
And maybe not literally, but I'm role modeling that to my kid.
Yes.
So I think that is a measurement and a guide for parents to be very cautious and who they're even choosing as a potential life partner in their future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And whether no relationship is perfect, and just as teenagers may catch some disagreements, also allow them to catch some compromise and conflict resolution.
Right.
It's important to role model to teenagers.
So as a relationship, as a parent, if I'm noticing that the relationship the intensity is getting more, intense, or there is just an escalation that I'm noticing. Maybe it started with a momentary text like, hey, where are you at? What are you doing? And then maybe 2 months later, I'm seeing the escalation of why aren't you answering my text? As a parent, if I'm seeing the escalation, but now the danger component is there,
Right.
what are some steps a parent can take to safeguard their child and to protect them?
Again, ask them from a point of view of feelings. How does that make you feel? Or express your point of view. I've noticed that this behavior has escalated,
Right.
and provide that opportunity to have a dialogue with your teenager, right? And then at that point, just explain that their feelings matter too, and that respect and boundaries are non-negotiable in a relationship.
And then if the danger component is there, are there outside resources that a parent might have to say, you know what, for your safety, we're going to take these steps?
Yes.
Who would they contact?
They can contact the National Domestic Violence Crisis Hotline. Even if it's targeted for adults, they will still provide support and guidance for a parent in helping their teenager navigate a relationship. There's also teen support hotlines, the Trevor Project hotline for our LGBTQ questioning teenagers. And they can also seek support at their schools, right? With ourselves, with our social workers and other support staff that can guide a parent through having those conversations with their teenager.
Yeah. And the referrals to mental health. And I know one of our partners specializes in these kind of cases, which would be our partner YWCA.
Yes.
But in very extreme cases, I would even recommend contacting your local law enforcement and creating a report. And they would get the guidance from them as to next steps. Because I know in some very unique cases, teenagers have had to actually utilize like restraining orders against other teenagers, right?
Correct.
So there's a plethora of community resources at the reach of parents, if indeed a parent does need to actively step in for the safety of that child, right?
Yes.
So usually when we conclude a podcast, we end it with like a take-home challenge for our families. For a parent that is recognizing, I don't know if this is the best relationship for my child, but I can't step in and make the decision for them. What is like a first step just to begin the process of helping that child really come to terms or to an understanding of, I might be in a relationship that could pose or eventually become violent in nature?
Definitely address concerns, provide the time and space for an open dialogue, engage in a lot of active listening, and just remind the teenager that you're going to be there for them no matter what the situation they may be confronting. Remind them that love shouldn't hurt, and that respect and boundaries are non-negotiable, and that love should feel safe, respected, and not controlled and minimized, right? Or have their sense of self get lost in the process.
No, that's so good. Because sometimes as parents, even if we feel like we have the answers, we don't have to come across like that we have all the answers.
Yes.
And part of that would be even asking our child, like, what do you need from me right now? How can I support you right now? Because these are such delicate conversations when it comes to teen dating that we kind of have to be careful and know when to push in to help our child and when to like step back so we don't push our child away from us, right? Because the relationship is more important than step 1, 2, 3, 4 that we need to take, right?
Yes.
And then, I think that conversation, that really what I'm learning throughout these podcasts is the number one thing that matters is relationship, but relationship is done through quality time, and quality time is always going to include communication.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And this is why these conversations between parent and child are so important, from the day they're born to the day they walk out of our house, and having that dialogue. And we've experienced a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and yes, we might have the knowledge, the experience, the know-how, the wisdom to support our kid, but it's really good to ask open-ended questions.
Yes.
Like, tell me about a time like that you felt uncomfortable in this relationship. Is this a common thing in your relationship that you tend to feel?
Yes.
And really posing it to where they could think for themselves.
Correct. Or putting it from another perspective, like if your friend was going through that, what would you think? What would you say? Right? Because it's harder to look inward than to provide some feedback to another.
Yeah. It's always easier to maybe help somebody else than ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
you.
I thank you for your time
Thank you.
and for being insightful and sharing with our families all of this information, because it's so important for our teens to be in healthy relationships.
Absolutely.
Because that really is going to pave the way for a lifespan of relationships, not just intimate relationship,
Yes.
but all relationships across the board, right?
That's correct.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you, Linwood Unified Families, for tuning in today. If you have any questions or concerns about your adolescent and their dating relationship, we do have the Health Collaborative at all of the school sites. You are more than welcome to contact your local licensed clinical social worker, or you could also talk to even our social emotional learning specialist if you have a child that's maybe in 5th grade or 6th grade that you are actually concerned about, if they are starting to be interested in boys and girls of, within their own schools, or even just for the teenagers. You could also contact our local community school case managers if you would like some resources and linkages to the community. But we are here to serve you and to support you and to empower you so that you and your family could be healthy and be well and do relationship in a way that is meaningful, purposeful, and healthy for everybody. So feel free to contact us. We are located here at Student Services Department at the Linwood Unified District Office. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope that you continue to follow our Beyond the Podcast episodes, and we will see you in the future. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you.